So as you can see, I've made up this bar here. This is the one I used for the XK. I'm sure I had one before, but as I said, I must have scrapped it. So this is the XK hole, which I won't confuse you with, and this is the one for the E-type. So I've done it centre to centre and actually calipered these holes to make sure that they're right on the money. So now I know that this alignment, or this ride height bar, this test bar, is correct. I've got on the anchor, which I'll show you in a minute, it's right in the centre where it should be. Now the problem is obviously I want to make sure that the splines are in line with the recess in here to put this bolt in. Now the problem with that is you obviously want to put this bolt in. It has to be, obviously the splines have to be lined up perfectly to get this bolt in. It's a tolerance fit. But what you want to be doing is putting the bolt in down the way, so that if anything happened, not that it's likely to, it's all under tension, but if anything happened, the nut could drop off maybe, but the bolt can't come out. So because the suspension's in that position, there's no way to get it in because of the engine frames. So what I can do now is I can take this bar off, push this down just a fraction more to get it past the frame and put it in that way. So that's a little tip, that. So you can't do it with this on, obviously, because it's in a certain position, and the top of this nut will, or the top of this bolt will catch on the engine frame. So as I say, what I need to do now is, now I've got it all positioned correctly, I can take this out and push this down slightly and drop this through and then put the nut on the other end. So I'll do that now. A little bit stronger. That's the top bolt out. And now it's pretty heavy. Okay, so I can now pull that out, take this arm off and use it on the other side. So what I'll now do is push this down enough so I can get this bolt in. So I'll come around the other side. Get my T out of the way. There you go. And it's in. And now I can nut it up on the other side. So I know that now it's in line. I've got to do is tighten it up. You can now see that the cam's in place. It's right up against that arm and we're good to go. So that's one side done and the bolt's in. So you can see there that it's much higher, the teardrop is much higher, and where the adjustment goes in, or the cam adjustment. So I need to bring that down to be the same as the other side. So I'm sorry about the camera work, but is it actually? So maybe you can see it better there. So you can see where that line is. I need to bring it below that, so it's one down on this end and one up, if you like, on the other. So it's quite fiddly. Excuse my bad camera work. Yeah, it's quite fiddly. So what I need to do now is, I know this is where it has to be, so I have to take the bar back off again now, so I can move this forward and push it forward. But obviously it won't come out where it is now. It's trapped behind there, and it won't come forward enough. And the holes are lined up as well, unfortunately. But it needs to come down just one. Obviously, after doing all this, what I should have done, in retrospect, is I should have used got new teardrops or torsion bars or whatever, but I certainly should have made sure the teardrops came off, because I think there's 26 or 25 on one end and 24 on the front end, I believe it is. It says it in the book. So the idea is you can get that maximum amount of torque in it. So as I say, what I have to do now is take this bar back off, lift it up, knock it back through, drop it down one spline and push it back again. so I can get these set up right. So I'll bring you back when we're doing that. You get a better view here of the reaction plate here. You can see these are where the cams are, and you can see the actual splines here at the back. I'll just come out of the way of the light, maybe you can see that better. The only problem with knocking them through the back is obviously you've only got a very small distance to take them back to where it hits the bell housing there. But I guess that's obviously enough to get them off the spline and turn this torsion bar, and the same on that side. And you can see what I'm talking about now, where I hope that shows up. So I'm going to move this light up a bit. I think you can see. You see those marks there? So obviously somebody's hit that with a chisel long before I got the car, because I saw the damage on it. And I think that was one of the reasons. So it's probably corroded in there, or there's rust on the splines. But I could not move them. And you can see that one's in slightly, and that one's flush. So that was the reason that I didn't change them, was because that one was absolutely solid. Yeah, I think that one came off if I remember rightly, but that one I could not move. Tried everything on it. So there we go. This is the classic Fabs exhaust system that I have. You can see it's really big bore in there, and the collectors are down here. So trying to get to these nuts and bolts is very difficult. You can see obviously the shield's off the gearbox, which is lying here. So it's not just this. This is the shield that goes underneath, so it's not just the space shuttle that has heat tiles. So I'll clean all that up. So I've got to clean all the underneath up. Yeah, and as you can see, obviously the exhaust is off. So I'm going to get everything cleaned up before I do that. I do have some work to do on the back of the car. I have to, if I can bring this up. So I've got to. I've got this bleed system on this. This is Fosway, but I have to do the handbrake. I have to adjust the handbrake for the next MOT or the next turf. And you may be able to see up there that I've got this bracket system, which is from, I think it's from SNG Barrett. I can't remember. Or it could be Fosway. Not sure. Anyway, I need to adjust that. So I can adjust it here. Which makes it a lot easier, and without the exhaust in place it's even better. So we'll give it a real good spring clean when we start on the back end. So the next thing will be to take these radius arms out. You can see they're wired. So I'll take these out, but you cannot get that bolt out without, you can see they're split there, without taking that carrier off, the hub carrier off. So I have to take that off. Take that rear anti-roll bar off, and then replace them. But there's no way to get into them, they need to be pressed out. So that's the next stuff that's coming up. So I'll take the ramp down, and we can see the finish on the front. Obviously the car has not been moved, it's still where it was on the ramp, and you can see the wheels are in a little bit. Obviously, once I drive it and move it backwards and forwards, the wheels will come back out. But I've got such a lot of other things to do on it at the moment that I'll leave it at that. So that's all the suspension back together. I'll show you now. I mean, obviously the bonnet's not on. I would imagine the bonnet weighs probably about, I don't know, 100, 110 kilos, about my weight. So you can see. I'll bring the camera in a minute and I'll show you the arms. They were almost horizontal when I started, and now they're down a little bit, but obviously the bonnet's got to go on. But they were like that even with the bonnet off, and you can see now that the suspension is really good. I did have to take the exhaust off to get to the torsion bar on this side, which is the reason for that is I have a special exhaust on this. I bought it from a company called Classic Fabs. It's a guy up in Scotland, Jimmy Stewart's his name. And it's a beautiful exhaust, but it's quite large, and the collector is right on the bottom where, and you'll see it in some later videos, the four-piece collector is right on the bit where the reaction plate is, so I had to take it off. I've still got to bolt that back up. But I will be taking the wheels back off to clean all the calipers and give the car a really thorough clean before we put it on the road next year. So I'll get everything finished up here, and then I'm going to start on the back of the car. The car has risen up by 2 centimeters, which is 0.78 of an inch, or just over 3/4 of an inch. Now that was moving on the front bars. So the front splines on the E-Types is 24 splines, and on the back it's 25 splines. And it's almost like you can use the torsion bar as its own vernier gauge to a certain extent. So in conclusion, what I would say is, if I was doing this all over again, I would definitely take off the back teardrops or the anchors off the splines. I had a really hard job trying to get them off, and I thought in the end, you know what, I can push them through the other way. But in retrospect, I would suggest, if you're going to do this, if you're working on your car or your E-Type, try and make sure that the back anchor splines are okay and they come out. And if they need to be pressed out, then so be it. Because the reaction plate is made for it to go backwards, and it's certainly a lot easier to push them out that way than it is this way. But like I said, I couldn't get them off, and what I should have done was gone to a place with a heavier, bigger press to get them off. But I saw that when I took them off, somebody had been beaten on the end and they were a bit gnarled, so I didn't want to change the position on them. But in retrospect, that's what I would do now. If I was rebuilding another one of these cars, that's not going to happen, but if I was, I would definitely make sure the anchored ones and knock them backwards. It's a lot easier than trying to knock it out the front. Because it's very hard to hold up, especially when you work on onion like I have been. Unfortunately, Mia's not here at the moment and may not come back until after, I think it's the 7th of December that we come out of our lockdown in Austria. And I don't know if because he has to travel through 2 countries, he has to come through Croatia and Slovenia and back and into Austria, 3 countries in fact, plus his own of Bosnia. Anyway, so as I say, I've checked it, the ride height's nice. What I need to do now is go around and check everything's tightened up properly, and I'll crack on with the rest of, I'll do some more videos, but it'll be on the back of the car. As I said, I have to do the handbrake, the bearings, and these bushings on the back, so I hope you'll join me on that. And on that note, I'll go and have a nice cup of tea and have a break. I spent around 8 hours, I would say, probably 8 hours, and most of that has been either jacking the car up or down, which you have to do anyway, whether you take them out the front or the back, because you have to take the tension off. But in my particular case, I've had to jack it to a certain point to get them out the front. So, as I said, if you can, take them out the back and make sure the anchors are you can get them off. So, on that note, I'll say cheerio, and as usual, stay safe, keep the faith, enjoy your hobby.